You have a chair in your bedroom, and it's not for sitting. You know exactly what I'm talking about. A jacket went there first. Then a hoodie. A pair of jeans. A shirt you might wear again tomorrow. And suddenly the chair disappeared under a pile you swore you'd organize over the weekend. That weekend never came. What nobody tells you is that this chair is not an organization problem. It's a direct window into how your brain actually works. And what it reveals about your mind is going to surprise you. Stay until the end. Because the last part completely changes how you'll see this habit and several others you carry without even noticing. Think about this for a second. Why is it so hard to just put clothes away? It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't know where the closet is. The answer is more unsettling than that. The clothes that end up on that chair are rarely completely dirty. But they're not completely clean either. You wore the hoodie for 2 hours. You tried on 3 shirts before going out. You came home late and dropped the jacket there because you were exhausted. And now your brain is stuck in a micro-decision. Does this go back in the closet? Into the laundry basket? Somewhere in between. Here's the real problem. Your brain hates this kind of decision. Not because it's hard, but because it feels unnecessary. And the human brain was built to conserve energy at all costs. Every single day, you make thousands of decisions. What to wear, what to eat, what to reply to, what to ignore, where to go, when to leave, what deserves attention, what can wait. Over time, all of that adds up. And the brain starts looking for shortcuts. The chair becomes one of those shortcuts. It creates a temporary category. Not clean, not dirty, not decided. Just there, and surprisingly, that's enough. At least for now. This is why the chair becomes a kind of psychological waiting room. A place where decisions go when you don't feel like making them. Not forever. Just until later. The problem is that later rarely arrives. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And suddenly the chair has become a monument to postponed decisions. But here's where it gets fascinating. Because this doesn't only happen with clothes. The package that arrived and was never fully dealt with. The message you read but didn't reply to. The suitcase you never unpacked after the trip. The small task you'll get to when you have time. None of them are urgent enough to demand action. But none of them are irrelevant enough to disappear. So they stay suspended in that strange middle ground, waiting, just like the clothes on the chair. In the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik was sitting in a cafe in Berlin when she noticed something strange. The waiters had an impressive memory. They could remember complex orders from multiple tables without writing anything down, but when the customers paid and left, something curious happened. The waiters simply forgot everything. Orders that had been perfectly stored in memory just seconds before vanished completely. Why? Zeigarnik spent years studying this pattern. And she discovered something that changed psychology forever. Unfinished tasks occupy far more mental space than completed ones. In other words, your brain holds onto what feels unresolved. Psychologists now call this the Zeigarnik Effect. Have you ever been unable to sleep because you kept thinking about something you need to do tomorrow? Have you ever randomly remembered an awkward conversation from years ago? Have you ever kept thinking about a message you forgot to answer? That's exactly this mechanism working. The brain doesn't like loose ends. It wants closure. It wants completed stories, finished tasks, clear decisions. But everyday life is full of things that never quite reach completion, and that's exactly where the chair comes in. Now here's the part most people never consider. On day 1, the pile of clothes catches your attention. On day 3, it's mildly annoying. On day 7, it's part of the room. On day 20, it has become furniture. Your brain adapted. The visual clutter fades into the background. You stop paying attention to it. Not because it disappeared, but because your mind learned to ignore it. This happens everywhere. The stack of papers on the desk. The box in the hallway. The drawer that never gets organized. The email waiting for a response. The project you promised yourself you'd start next week. Over time, these things become invisible. Not physically invisible. Psychologically invisible. It's the same reason you stop hearing the sound of a fan after a few minutes. Or the ticking of a clock. Or the feeling of your clothes against your skin. Your attention naturally shifts away from what doesn't change, and that's exactly why the chair can stay full for weeks without you doing anything about it. But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You're probably carrying dozens of open loops right now. The chair, the message, the suitcase, the drawer, the email, the appointment you need to schedule, the form you need to fill out, the book you keep meaning to finish. Each one consumes a small amount of cognitive space. And while any single task is insignificant, together they create a constant background noise, a subtle feeling that something is still unresolved. This is why some people feel mentally exhausted even when they haven't done anything particularly difficult. Their minds are carrying the weight of everything that was postponed. Now the part that changes everything. The chair is not laziness. It's prioritization. Not the conscious kind where you sit down and decide what matters. The subconscious kind where your brain quietly decided something else deserves attention first. Nothing terrible happens if the hoodie stays there one more day. Nothing dramatic happens if the jeans remain unfolded. So the brain allocates its resources toward deadlines, responsibilities, and immediate problems. And this reveals something surprisingly important. Human beings were not designed to maximize order. We were designed to manage energy. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes complete sense. For most of human history, energy was precious. The brain evolved to avoid unnecessary effort whenever possible. Even today, that ancient system is still running in the background. Your brain is constantly asking one simple question: do I need to spend energy on this right now? If the answer is no, the task gets postponed. Not eliminated, just postponed. And now the closing I promised you at the beginning. When you look at your chair full of clothes and think it's evidence of failure, you're wrong. It's evidence that you're human. Because the truth is, almost everyone has their own version of the chair. Some people leave clothes piled up. Others leave dishes in the sink. Some have dozens of browser tabs open. Some ignore messages they fully intend to answer. Others never unpack their suitcases. Or carry unfinished projects, postponed conversations, decisions they've been avoiding for months. The details change. The psychology doesn't. At its core, the chair represents something deeply human. The constant negotiation between what matters now and what can wait until later. Understanding this doesn't make the chair disappear, but it replaces judgment with awareness. And awareness is powerful. Because once you understand a habit, you stop fighting a mystery. You start seeing the pattern behind the behavior. What looked like laziness may actually be decision fatigue. What looked like procrastination may actually be low urgency. What looked like a character flaw may simply be a very normal human tendency. So tell me honestly in the comments right now, do you have a chair like this? Or maybe your version isn't a chair at all. Maybe it's a drawer, a desk, a suitcase, a pile of unopened boxes, a screen full of unread messages. Write below what your version of the chair is and how many days it's been full. I read every single comment. And if this video made you see an everyday habit in a completely different way, share it with someone who needs to hear this. That person who is too hard on themselves for things that are simply human. Subscribe to the channel. Because every week we dive into the psychology behind the habits you do without noticing. Habits that seem trivial but reveal how your mind actually works. And hit the bell. Because the next video is about a habit you probably do every single day, and it says a lot more about you than it seems. See you then.